righty. Welcome
Yay.
to our year in review 2023.
Yeah. This year went by so fast.
It went by fast, and look who's here.
She always has to be at these ones.
Here, do you want to come up here? So the thing that struck me first before we get into this, really, is that we had 34 unique drops this year.
Yeah.
That included some on-the-go episodes and included the book party.
Yep.
But still, I think that's the most episodes we've had for sure since we started.
Yeah.
And I think we're celebrating 4 years. We started in,
Yes.
This is our 4th.
This is our 4th year, yes.
Yeah. So it's very exciting.
Yeah.
And as per usual, Missy and I will take a walk down memory lane and reveal
if we can remember.
the mystery. No,
right.
This is so silly. Behind some of the interviews and what we remember.
Yeah.
And maybe anything interesting or behind the scenes or, things that stuck out for us in terms of the interview. And we have a lot to get through, so we might
maybe question how we can still get people to come in and talk to us.
Exactly. Okay, so our first
that after this.
Too. Yeah, exactly. Our first interview of 2023 was Coach Doug Ewell. You knew him well.
Catch. Yeah.
Yeah, good catch. Yeah. And I will say something that's, I think, talk about the ripple effect, because Doug was on, then other coaches and other people, I think like Jimmy, who we'll talk about later, and John, so other people were like, Doug did it, so I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And the other thing that I loved about the conversation with Doug is that he has such a special relationship with all the students, in that he was there probably earlier than most everyone to greet them and give them high fives and kind of get a read on how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that as a coach and as a teacher in the school, but he was doing that with everybody, not just the athletes, which most of the athletes know him. Right. And the extra time he would take with students to talk about other parts of their life and not just that. So, I mean, phenomenal.
He stands at the door, like the entry door, every day, and will just catch people as they're coming in. And so he does it every day.
And he's also someone just personally that has we have mutual friends, and I hadn't spent a lot of time with, but everybody was like, you got to talk to Doug. You got to, so it was one of those, it was really fun for me to get to know him a little bit better.
Yeah. He and I actually got to break up a fight together this year.
Really?
Like real fisticuffs, laying on the floor, breaking a fight. Yeah. And right away he went back to just as soon as we broke it up and we had everybody separated, then he was like, okay, what's going on between these two girls? As I'm like, if you hit me, I will press charge.
You said that?
And he's like,
were you scared in that moment?
I mean, I was panicking a little bit. Yeah, I was
That's
like,
scary.
Yeah, it's scary. Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Oh my
gosh. He's like, ladies, come on.
We should say Hannah's here too in the room, so we may hear from Hannah from time, time in and out, right?
Yes. Anyway, but that's who he is. He is like the. Okay. She's like, that's about all you're gonna get.
Always with the tea. That's a behind the scenes TFA. We always have a little tea sharing. So then Aza Owasum. I shouldn't say all the last names because I feel like some of these I might mess up. But Aza, really cool to have on. She's part of another life of mine with respect to consulting work that I do. She was on Big Brother, so that was super cool. I loved all of her inside scoop there. And she was our first on the go episode.
Yes.
So I feel like for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, we have a YouTube channel called TFA Soft Skills, and we're starting to put some of our interviews out on YouTube, little snippets. And so please check us out.
Yeah,
little plug, subscribe, whatnot. You're hearing Missy's bumpers to get us to
and she gives all the info on there's reality TV and what that was like, and so
the thing I thought was crazy. So weird was when she talked about how you don't leave and you're never outside and you're in that manufactured, and then the lights come up and they're like morning.
Yes.
Whatever, very Truman Showy.
Yes.
It just,
right.
You got to listen. Yeah, people got to listen to that.
Yeah.
This is a good.
You just
episode.
don't even really know.
Yeah.
Yep. I know. Why people want to do that? I just don't know, right?
No.
I guess you think about it, and then when you hear what it's really like, then maybe you're like, okay, no, it's not really like
no, not
dream,
for me.
Right?
Yeah, right. When you hear the real scoop. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Who's next, Missy?
Erin Flynn, social worker extraordinaire. She
Yes.
was fascinating, I think. Like, I mean, I know you've known her for forever. It was fun to see you guys like reconnect.
Yeah, it's been a long
But
time.
just hearing her journey and how she like got to therapy as, you know, her profession, even though she always knew she wanted to help people, and then going through her whole,
Yeah.
you know, thing of coming out to her family, and, you know, then just really taking that and being able to help other people in that experience, in all experiences, but knowing that there's something that's, you know, nerve wracking that you
Yeah.
don't want to do, that you have to face, and, you know, so.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I really enjoyed about reconnecting with her and in that conversation, feeling like she is very vulnerable and like to be a good therapist and to really be open. I joked in the Moogie episode that Moogie's an open wound.
Yes.
I think Erin, over time as she's evolved, has become so open and vulnerable that you feel so comfortable with her and could tell her anything.
Yeah.
And then she's been through it, you know, with
Right.
her mom's passing and then, you
Right.
know, so much. Yeah. And then what about her job with the, in the like news world
Oh
when she
yeah.
had to go with where the person
Right.
was
Yeah, like
dead
the
and
yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Right. And
I
it's
mean,
like we couldn't show any of that, but I'm standing right in
yes,
the middle of like body parts, and
yes,
I know.
yeah. So that was
Yeah.
fascinating. You're right, like the journey, and then
Yeah.
also just some of the attributes and characteristics that have really evolved for her over time. It's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, very cool to see.
Yep. And Meriwether,
Yes.
the camp counselor extraordinaire. Madeira. I see, I knew it. Yes. And kind of creating her own way to get there, right? And picking what she was majoring in school, and you know, administration or whatever. But then, yeah, just being like, I just know I'm supposed to, you know, I want to be at camp all the time. So
That is a pretty cool story with the knowing exactly what you want,
mm-hmm.
and then at a pretty early in your career being able to find that thing, or
Mm-hmm.
at least have that goal, meet that goal, and then now you get to kind of move
Yep.
from there.
And
So that
help people.
yeah,
Yeah. And then also
and she
because
just
it's
loves it.
she loves it.
Yeah,
And also, you know, since it's a boarding school too, and she went to boarding school by choice,
yeah,
then, you know, again, being able to relate to the
yeah,
kids that she works with, maybe some kids that she hires,
yeah.
all of that. So,
Very cool.
mm-hmm.
Brian Colella,
BC.
easy coach extraordinaire,
Right.
parent
Accountant. Right.
extraordinaire, accountant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brian does it all.
Yeah.
So such a soft spot for Brian. Obviously, we're super close, but I think sitting down and talking with him and hearing his path of working in a more corporate setting and then going out on his own and what was required for that, and then I think also he's someone who I feel like Brian has like mastered the kind of art of efficiency and also like volume with respect to his
Mm-hmm.
clients and being able to kind of have this proven methodology of
Mm-hmm.
supporting his clients. And then I feel like we talked a bit about like you know, kid raising and
Yes.
also the sports because he's so involved. And I think some really great insight
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have to listen.
Yes.
To
Right.
find out.
Right. And also just know he likes to have meetings at 3:00 on Fridays. Just kidding. He doesn't really. But I feel like he did have a meeting that day at like 3:00 on a Friday, and I was like, "Are you really that kind of person? Really?"
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, he is. Laura Rothy, really good friend and mentor, and someone I spent a lot of time with at Deloitte. We told the hilarious story of the best prank I've ever pulled, and you'll have to listen to hear
Yes.
it. But I'm not a prank person, but I'm telling you, in my career, it's best prank ever. And I think
You guys did do that. You did that well. Yeah.
that was such a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I do love it. I just think about it and it like brings joy to my heart because I don't ever, it just worked so perfectly and scared her to death. So that was
Yes.
great.
What do you mean? Right.
You're what?
Right.
You're where? Yeah. Um, and she also, I loved because she, you know, knowing her professionally, she's super successful. And then the fact that she, in her first year of school, struggled, didn't have a great year, and she got the letter from the teacher that was said, "Don't bother coming back unless you're serious." And then what had like transpired after that, and
Mm-hmm.
just you know how she's been able to have such a successful career, and she's just one of those people. that if you're lucky to be on her team and kind of be in her sphere, you can't help but be impacted in a positive way. She really challenges people to like be better and drive better performance.
And also getting that letter and not just shutting down and being like, forget it.
Yeah.
Like taking on that challenge and not just walking away or being like, well, someone doesn't believe in me, so I'm done. Clearly I'm not made up for it, you know? And so then again, like I'm just challenging people that she works with. But I feel like she does it in a way that, like when to stop and not go too far, right? But in a way that is going to help you grow, maybe push you outside your comfort zone just a little bit. And then, so
for sure.
Mr. Paul Freeman, our 100th episode. I know. Can't believe
Cue
it.
the trumpet.
Who, I mean, love him for being so open about his cancer journey, which is a big, part of the conversation, and, just everything that he went through and having to tell the kids. And I mean, I remember when you guys got that news and it was like, oh, what?
Yeah. Everything stops for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun interviewing him. And one of our kids just said the other day, like, I really need to listen to that episode. I think that he's, a lot of people were able to, if you want to, kind of get into the weeds of the experience and understand kind of from start to where he is now, like the different, peaks and valleys. And I think even for us going through it, there is a little, you sort of realize the PTSD of it and things that you blocked or forgot. And then, what's really cool, we'll get to it, but we got to interview his oncologist. And so kind of have that in the same year.
Right.
And that's coming up. So people haven't heard that yet, but or I guess they will by the time they hear this.
Yeah, that's okay. Yes. So, and that was fun too. He's the 100th episode and he was the first or the second of when it started.
When it started with Liza. Yeah. So it was cool. And I, appreciate, the feedback that's that people I think took from it what he was hoping.
But I think through the whole thing, he with his journal that he would share with people, like he kept people up to date.
That's true. Yeah.
Shared personal things, I think, and so I think that's helpful for people that are going through any kind of health thing. But that because a lot of people don't want to talk about it, like they just don't want to show what they're going through.
You just kind of want to blow
and
through it and not
just keep it going. Let's go. Kevin White, Officer Kevin White. He was good too. I mean, so
good.
He shared a lot of good things and challenging things, right? I mean, you know, when how things changed when he was younger, and one of the first things that he did, like there was a baby that they had to go perform CPR on at a daycare and didn't make it, but how couple years earlier that would have been very different because he had kids now, and so it was just a whole different, like how his career morphed as his life changed, his personal life changed, and also just the challenge of making it through the academy, and and now he's 20 something years in. So
I thought fascinating, like in terms of one, I'm have a special place in my heart for law enforcement and military and FBI, like everybody that, all those agencies that serve our country. So that, I feel like is such a gift. And then, the kind of behind the scenes on that in the academy and the career path, I think, having done a lot of different things and, it was fun interview. Like I really, and it sparked all these ideas
right
for me that we'll maybe talk about another time. But I just think like, oh, stop, little moo, here's something. But awesome. And then Brian Case was a blast.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, I don't know if you ever have this, but you have expectations of what something's going to be like and it either meets or exceeds. And I feel like that conversation is exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yes.
Like, because I've always felt very appreciative of Brian with respect to, his interaction with my boys. And he's always so enthusiastic. And as a parent, I felt like he was just so the right balance teacher of involvement and engagement and being organized and also enthusiastic. And I just always really appreciate it. So then being able to sit down and get to know him better and hear his journey and his struggles and how much he's been through.
Right.
And I know that we had, there was a fair amount of traffic with that episode too, in terms of listenership and just people kind of hearing story.
Right. I mean, it takes a special person to teach middle school, especially middle school music.
Yeah.
And he just, I mean, he does draw kids to him. You know,
Yeah.
they are very drawn to him. His energy is amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And now that he's in a bigger role, or not
Mhm.
bigger, a different role, but
Mhm.
being able to apply, I think so interesting the thing he said about music. I mean, he loves music, but music was the way that the method or the mechanism to have impact on students.
Mhm.
And now in this other role, he has maybe more opportunity outside of
Yep.
just music. So
Mhm.
that idea of like, and we talk about it in business too, where your product or your business or what your business does, yes, that's important. It's also what does that allow you to do in terms of developing people within that context of
Right.
that business. And so
Yes.
that's kind of what,
Mhm.
yeah, I like that
Yeah.
about that.
And helping them find things that they like, because that's so hard.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
at that age.
And
To
boys
even
and
care
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah.
Dr. Layfield, one of
Love
your
Dr.
faves. Yeah.
Layfield.
So that one, what I think about when I first think about is how long it took to get him.
I know.
And I think he was a pullover from last year, like we
Yes.
just with scheduling.
Yes.
I think what I loved about that interview is the fact that he was able to talk about being an introvert in a way that I think was extremely relatable, and how he had to push through it at times to strengthen his
Mhm.
communication and people skills that now serves him as. I think he
Mhm.
just did a great job of describing what that's like
Yes.
and how he intentionally has spent time pursuing that and developing
Mhm.
them, and it's helped the business.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, and I think he was our first surgeon
He was.
doctor,
Mhm.
so we got some of that, like the
Mhm.
med school stuff,
Yep.
and the behind the scenes
Yep.
on that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, the Mills have frequent flyer miles with him for
Yeah.
sure. But
You
yeah, we're there
do.
all the time, I
You're
feel
on speed
like.
dial.
But
Oh, and he actually helped us out a lot. After that interview, I felt like I could text him.
yes.
Even though it's like a little sheepish. But Scotty got hurt and we got an opinion, and I was like, I
Yeah.
just
Right.
don't know that that's right. And so he totally hooked me up.
Uh-huh.
He ended up being out of time, but his PA helped us, and
Mhm.
she gave us a different opinion, and it saved
Yeah.
us a lot of money and
Yeah.
time. So
And here's what I like about him too is that he also is the sports doctor for a
yes,
lot of schools.
yeah,
And so he works with the athletic trainers a lot. And a lot of times athletic trainers and doctors don't really agree with how treatment should go, for
Mhm.
athletes, because it's different, but because he does that, like he's a phenomenal sports doctor too, because he knows like
Yeah,
what the goal is of the kids, and working with all the athletic trainers. He like 5 or 6 schools in Prince William County. But yeah, so he's actually really good, and his reputation is very good because that's
yeah,
where people want to go, because he has the same goal as
yeah,
the trainers would or the schools would, in getting kids back out and playing, and not just
yeah.
sitting up and quitting for the season or whatever. So it's very good. Timmy, your nephew
Timmy
Timmy,
P.
Chef Timothy,
Yes.
right? I don't even,
Yeah.
Chef. Um,
Extraordinaire.
yeah. And him,
Mr.
that was cool
Global.
because, right, that's what I was gonna say. That was really cool because, him, like how he got into the interest in being a chef, and then being able to take that literally
Yeah.
around the world
Yeah.
in doing that, right? And it was, just one person that encouraged him, like,
A
let's
little
try
behind the
that. And
scenes
yeah.
on that interview, because Timmy, I think because he's been gone and traveling so much, and from a family perspective of not being able to be at as many gatherings or spend as
Mhm.
much time together as he's an adult and moved on. And my sister, we joked that after the episode, she's like, I learned things
Yeah.
about her own son,
Oh, wow.
and I certainly learned a lot about
Yeah.
him in terms of his path. And I think that's the really cool part about this experience of doing this
Yeah.
podcast is hearing and learning from people that you think but every person, right, has a unique story that isn't quite what you think it is.
Mhm.
And I loved his description and the detail of those early years and how challenging it was, and
Mhm.
how he would get the volumes of books to
Mhm.
understand, like I think that's the anytime you think of someone that does a trade or any job like successfully, you don't hear about the hard part in the beginning of trying and
Right.
trying and trying. So
Mhm.
I love that.
Or
And I
also just going outside of the job to like
yeah
learn things on his own, right? Like
and
he was,
yeah,
doing that Right.
And his honesty about kind of failure and what that's
Mhm.
meant for him and how that's not easy to talk about. And I
Mm-mm.
feel like yeah, it was
Yeah.
a special one for
Yeah.
me, for sure.
Yeah. That
So
was
thank
good.
you, Timmy.
That was good.
If you're listening to this, thank you.
You know he is.
Yeah, I hope so. Oh, and our Korean audience, right? Like
Yes.
we saw a lot more of an uptick in our
Yeah.
global
Yeah.
listenership.
Yes. All right. Elena Agar. She was fun
Yes.
coming from Russia and then, yeah, moving here at 13. And she said, here's what I liked. I mean, but she moving here at 13, she said she came, which is hard age to
Yeah.
like move anywhere, but
Yes.
let alone from Russia to the United States, where she was popular. She had a lot of friends, and she comes here and has to basically figure out how to do that in a whole other country and environment, and people are different, and so I thought that was inspiring. And then just like and finding friends and
Yeah.
success, and
Yes, and that I think when we talked with her, it kind of unfolded that a lot of what she does today in her work, because she does a lot about people development and interestingly aligned like soft skills development, leadership and recruitment and all those kind of things. And as she was talking, we made the connection that she's serving people in a capacity that is perhaps how she wanted to be treated, right? And
Yeah.
being
Yes.
really sensitive to that. So
Yep.
the other thing is she had me on her podcast, and I think the thing that I've really appreciated about her even post this discussion is she two things. One, she started a nonprofit that I'm on the board, not on the board, I'm a volunteer coach for. And then also, which I have to well, maybe put it in the notes. I can't think of the name right now. But the other thing is she is always kind of pushing the envelope with respect to putting herself out there professionally. Like she's doing a lot more on LinkedIn now with video. And I don't know, I just feel like she's one of those people that's always pressing forward and trying new things. And I think that's pretty
Yep.
inspiring. That's pretty cool.
I agree. Yep.
Oh, Jimmy is next.
Yes. Boss man.
Yeah. So you have
As
to
I
be
call
careful.
him.
You have to be careful what you say. That
Nope.
interview was so full of energy.
Yes. He is
And
like that all the time.
yeah,
All the
I
time.
love it. Certainly had a great connection on the cancer story from Paul's, being intimately involved with that. So I just feel like there was a immediate connection. I think the specificity of education and spending so long at Centerville, right? Like that's
30
been
years.
30
This is
years.
his, yeah, he'll retire. He'll retire in June.
That's
July. Something
crazy.
like that, yeah.
And you get to tell us the little interesting tidbit that came as a result of that interview with Lindsay.
Oh, Lindsay Zarniak.
Yeah.
Yes, because she went to Centerville too. And right, I got to meet her at the Hall of Fame induction that we did, because she was inducted into the Hall of
Yeah.
Fame, and I'm total girl crush on her. And then
And
you
she
know, crush
listened.
on her husband, yeah, too. So
Yeah.
and she listened, and she was like, that was awesome. But yeah, so then I got to meet her, and anyway, but yes,
Oh, and his
Jimmy is like that all the
his
time.
blooming film career. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what happens with all that.
I had heard about it before, but since that interview like went live,
Yeah.
people talk about it all the time.
Really?
Like everybody is always like Jimmy and and his
Hollywood?
movies he's gonna make. Yes.
Got to start calling
It just makes
Hollywood.
me laugh. It makes me. I mean, I'm like that is fantastic that everybody knows that. But yeah, I know, right? He's like a bunch of people came out of the woodwork too, even ex-girlfriends. He was like, maybe that's not so.
Really? It's interesting.
I know, right? He's like, do I call them back? No.
Just sometimes things are better just left.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a reason you don't talk to them anymore, so no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
Anyway. Yes. Cheryl Yarborough. She I don't know her, but I know a bunch of people that do know her and her name, and and I know she is a phenomenal basketball coach and shooting coach, and
Yeah.
obviously that connects with me.
Mhm.
But what I liked that, the students that she works with, the athletes that she works with, it isn't just her mission that she is on. What stuck out to me was that, she was like, these kids are going to play with a team this season, a team this year, or whatever, and so she does her training schedule based on like what their game schedules are. And so, which I think is, I mean, that's a lot of outside work for a coach in trying to figure out, like when kids have games and when they can like meet up for individual coaching and then scrimmages that they play or whatever, and just trying to keep them healthy and having that respect for other coaches.
Yeah.
Which I love that. So
Yeah, and I think her journey too to become that, and how she was, I think, in the corporate world for a bit, but also like finding this like pure passion that came through to me more than anything, that she's so, you sometimes hear about people like self-actualizing and like this is the thing
yeah,
like you're meant to do and meant to be and meant to, and I think the just the emotion that she has in terms of being able to have impact. And yeah, I thought that was really, and our friend Julie referred her for the podcast, and I think and then we all went to lunch after, so it was kind of fun to like connect the three of us. But I do think just her philosophy and the way that she talked about what she teaches kids, like I think some of us as adults can
yes
learn as well.
I mean, yes.
But she was great to have.
Yeah, that was awesome. What was that
It's
thing?
Tammy and Mike.
Oh. I mean, if there's any set of parents in this neighborhood to aspire to be like, yeah. I loved, that they both went to Naval Academy, and so that was
in different ways.
I love that she was tapped from being enlisted.
Yes.
And which is awesome. And obviously felt that connection because of Patrick at West Point. But I liked, so in the second, that was a 2-part episode, and then the second episode, we asked them, or you asked them, like parenting advice, or whatever they said, or whatever that question was. And Mike's response, well, both of them actually, right? They said, we let them see our successes and our failures. So even in jobs, like she changed jobs, and the kids got to see that whole process and them going through that, right? But they also, they support their kids, and they, he said, you want somebody to be proud of you no matter what, because sometimes when things happen and someone is not going to be proud of you, like then maybe you stay away from that, and that is maybe the direction that you're supposed to go. So just always like giving their kids always that support.
Yeah.
Whether they always agree with it or not, but just letting them know that they are loved all the time, and whatever happens, what happens, success or failure, either way, even though their kids, I don't think, have failed at anything like ever, but
I think too, they're fascinating career trajectory and career paths, like in terms of being in the military and then what they did with that, and how they've been able to navigate that. And I agree. There's something about them, a little behind the scenes on them, which I maybe talked about in the interview, I don't know, but our oldest son, Luke, is really good friends with their son. And for years, Luke has been telling us that we should get to know them, that he thought that we would all, get along very well. And so when we spent some time with them, we joke with Luke, we're like, okay, you were right. Like in terms of setting us up, but they're just so easy to be around. They're very laid back and approachable, and yet, uber successful. There's something about the way that they operate in the world that I really appreciate. There's a lot of humility, I think is what I'm
the first time that I met him, we actually were doing like tickets at a soccer game together or something. I can't, maybe a lacrosse game. I can't remember what it was, but like we talked for like 2 hours. Just, and just
great
so
stories.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know if we talked about anything real. It was just like, joking, laughing about stupid stuff. But anyway, so yes, they are those people, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
So
Amy Babish, fascinating. So she is it's like I don't know if you can remind me, Hannah, of what her, it's like I want to say
relationship type coach.
Yeah, relationship psychologist and coach. But I think when she talked about her path of art therapy and spending a lot of time in that space, and then figuring out where she really wants to spend her time and where the best stuff happens with clients. And I think the way that I think she works with a lot of C-suite and a lot of like, let's get under the hood and not shy away from the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And being pretty like direct about that experience of like, if you're serious about it and you really want to change, she's the one to help you do that.
I like that she said, let me just direct. There's no beating around the bush. Sometimes that's the best way to get through to people. You just have to be that way. No sugarcoating.
What's her
leadership and relationship coach.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Leadership and relationship
Licensed
coach.
psychotherapist.
Yeah.
Yep.
She's someone too that was like, after we talked to her, I was like, maybe I should call her up.
Uh-huh.
Like, let's have a chat on the side. Like,
Right.
she's just a great demeanor about her, for sure.
Uh-huh.
Good old Dr. Wendy Gottlieb. So this one, it's so funny. It brought so many memories back for us. Again, some of our friend group that, we all hung out back in the day. So I don't think I had seen her probably since high school.
Mm-hmm.
So just to hear about her practice and her path and how it's evolved. And then she was so good about giving us all the detail on breast augmentation and tummy tucks and just, the kind of, the good and the bad, right? With respect to that. And I think also just talking about her path to that and how it wasn't something that she ever considered. And then it was through her residency, I think, and other experiences where she found real mentorship.
Yeah.
And to me, like, it's so interesting because that's medicine, but the power of people, right? The power of people in your life and how that can affect decisions.
Yep.
And then she's made a whole career based on that mentorship.
Yeah. And I think too, there's such a stigma with plastic surgeons, right? And what she, getting into, like, there's besides tummy tucks and breast augmentations, but it's cancer people that have to have mastectomies and, like that, those are plastic surgeons and taking out scars and burn victims and, like that's all plastic surgery. And so I think it kind of gets a bad rap. It doesn't have to be. And they,
I think that's really fair.
So I like that too, that, she got into all of that and just shared all of that and, everything that they do.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Wendy. Dr. Gottlieb.
Bill McAdams. This dude was a trip. I don't like to drop names, but no, I'm just kidding. He was fun and so fun that like you knew him, but
it's a trip. Billy, like, I think we courted him for a while. So the fact that we finally got to get, like, just between our end and his end, I think that what I think is really inspiring and commendable is that he has been able to make a career in something that he loves to do in a very harsh, challenging industry, and he's done it on his terms. That's kind of how I would surmise that conversation. And I think his start, like when he talks, you'll have to listen, but his start, like at Catholic, and how he was, what sort of being noticed or and how that progressed. But I mean, I do remember myself being in LA in those early 90s and meeting him. And, obviously I've since have left and didn't, couldn't sort of withstand what's required to really make that work. And he, has done a lot of different things. And I think his comments around like being curious and staying curious and being open and learning and observing in the early part of his career, like being a sponge so that he can now apply all of that. I feel that translates to any industry.
I agree with you on that. Yes.
And just being open.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, he likes to tell the stories, right? And so,
oh, good. Yeah.
Because he gets to, I mean, Sean McGinley was like this too, right? Like you go out and you want to try to make it big, and who doesn't? But then you get like that one big paycheck, and then you're like, okay, well now what do I really want to do? Like what are the stories that I want to tell? And they, gravitating towards like the indie things and, So, and then the fun stories too of him jumping in to be,
and Matt Damon's, and his,
But anyway, but yes, like, saying, I like to tell the story, and, if people are starting to tell a story that he's like, man, if you really want that out there, maybe we can like tell it this way or whatever. So
Jose Canseco, I think, was one. And then I think the one who's working on 2 right now seems really interesting. And Bully High, I think, is another one, which is getting some critical acclaim at some film festivals. So I'm just really, one, gratitude that he joined us, and 2, it's just interesting to hear the path and, what strikes him and how he's really particular about where he spends his time and driving that.
Yes. And also he's figured out how to kind of save money. So that's why people want to work with
Yeah.
him,
Because
he's like, I can get what they want done for cheap.
And he used the Hallmark. He used Hallmark as an example, and Hallmark is a running joke in our house because I'm a fan.
Yes. And
we are going to go on you and I have to commit to doing a Hallmark cruise or something.
We have to. I know. It'd be awesome.
You in, Hannah?
Oh, no.
She's like, that's like old
Oh
people
no.
stuff.
Oh
I do
no.
watch a little
Oh no, she says. Oh my gosh. Captain John.
Oh my
Captain Mike.
gosh.
Your captain, my captain.
She is.
Behind the scenes on this one, I would say, one, we never thought he'd actually do it. And in fact, Brian Colella
Thanks
was like,
again, Doug Yule.
yeah, Doug Yule.
And Jimmy Santabaria.
Yes, and yeah,
Yes,
that's
I
right.
sent him the list and I was like, Brian Colella, check.
Yeah.
Doug Yule,
Check,
check.
yeah.
Right. Jimmy Santabaria, check. John Shields.
I
Yeah.
think
He's
that
like, fine.
what is great about that conversation is he is someone who I think people assume a lot because he's not, at least the ways, I don't know how he is socially, but in terms of being out in the community and kind of seeing him operate, you don't know a lot, right? He's not someone that shows all his cards, and you're not really, there's like Jimmy's probably a little more out in the world the way that Jimmy is,
Yes.
And I think the thing that's interesting about that is that I found him to be, reflective and thoughtful, and in terms of his path and how serious he takes his job and that of his coaches, and the thought that goes into it, and the expectations, and being honest about that. And I think he's in a tough job, football in our community, and gosh, I can't even imagine. I think I was thinking about Texas, and I'm just like, yeah. But even here, there's just a lot of expectation. There's a lot of noise, and who talked about being a parent and how challenging that is, and the social media. I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot that we got into that was interesting to hear, but also, he was vulnerable.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I wish everybody could see that John and not, the one on the football field. I mean,
or that they assume he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so last night they had their banquet and he, was talking and he was like, I mean, I'm very transparent. And I seriously laughed out loud. Like, I was like, sorry. But I mean, he is when you sit down and have a conversation or stand up and have, whatever. But again, he's got to be a little protective too of him and his family. And, because yes, people will say anything and everybody is, everybody's very bold in email or on social media. But then, when having that face-to-face conversations, nobody really wants to do that. His reputation for sure, especially around the school, is that, he does care about the kids and you can see it. And, I mean, I always be grateful to him because he trained my kid up to be able to survive at West Point. And that is always, going to be my soft spot for him. And that's the kind of person that he is. Yeah. And then when he first came, he and I had a conversation and, I was like, how come my kid's not playing? And he's like, well, he needs to get bigger, stronger, faster. And again, I laughed and I was like, you know us, right? And he was like, yeah. So, but I was like, okay, well, now I know where you stand.
Yeah.
You know where I am. And like, we just, figured it out. Right. But best thing in the world for Patrick. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Patrick is that beast. And he's like, I got yelled at more at football than I did here. So, I let John know that.
Yeah. I think that's the thing to remember in that preparation, right? That these coaches and everybody, and teachers, and that soft spot for all these people in this profession as well, which is like, they have our kids at such a formidable time, and the harshness that's required to win and to be competitive is very helpful when we all know that life is harsh. Like, if anybody wants to come in and have a different conversation, but it is harsh.
It's
and
where kids learn real life
is always
lessons.
harsh. Like, I think I thought as a young person, like, oh, because it was harsh here, it's going to be easier here. And it just isn't. And so the more you can prepare people, and I think you might get a bad rap if like you're being harsh or difficult, or you're not, not getting playtime, whatever that is, but it prepares them.
Right. No, it definitely does.
And
And I was the only one that was bothered by it, right? Like Patrick knew. They know he's small. He knows he's small, and like he would get in, he would be ready when he would get a chance to get in. But I mean, but I agree with you. And teachers just don't have that ability anymore. And it's coaches where they learn things, and also that's how they care about your kid.
Right.
If they weren't being hard on them, they probably don't care.
Life lessons.
Why else would you? Right. So
Kevin Flynn. So we have brother siblings in the same year, which maybe that's kind of a unique behind the scenes. Kevin is a judge, so it's our first judge, and fascinating in terms of how the judgeship works with respect to what he's doing. Love talking about his naval career and his crazy cases, right? He talked about but it was like a crazy mafia, but like Middle Eastern
Terrorist thing.
terrorists.
Yeah.
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 Kind of case,
Yeah.
Right.
That was thank you. It was a terrorist
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just, I think the preparation and the detail oriented, not being a great student and then figuring out his path and then really connecting, and just talked about how much he really enjoyed being in the Navy and serving, and how those are some of the, and the moving around. And I think also just that, like, I feel like with some of the people that we talk to that have unique jobs, I just love getting into the details of that job and what it's really like versus like what you see on TV.
Yeah.
So
right.
I just enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it's a lot. Right. They
Yeah.
don't just sit up there and make a decision, right?
Yeah.
They're researching too.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're making the right one.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and we asked him the whole thing about, we won't reveal, but we did ask him about, like, did you ever think you made the wrong call?
Yep. Yep. Kelly.
Kelly is me.
Mhm.
Like, waiting for you to say.
I-
Kelly was lovely, is lovely. She's not, yeah, lovely person. And she's at Skillfully, Kelly Cure. And that was a great conversation. And I feel like someone who, obviously their organization and what I'm trying to do is connected. So we have a kinship there. But her journey and path of being in Europe and really very early on finding out that she wanted to do her own thing and how that's morphed and changed. I think she was someone, as we talked, that had a lot of those like nuggets that almost like sound bites in terms of leadership, in terms of how she motivates people, in terms of what they're trying to do with respect to the business and upskilling talent. So I just found the whole thing very very enjoyable, and also just a lot of insight and great advice.
Yeah. You guys were definitely along the same path. And
Yeah.
that was fun to
Vibing on
listen
that
to you.
little geek.
Yeah. Right. To be like,
Geek out.
yeah. And, why make it sound fun, why soft skills are so important. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And how they can really help you and, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I just think she had a really good perspective, and the kind of courage it took to go out on her own and be able to forge ahead. I think that's impressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Sarah Sutton, your coach.
Yeah.
The executive
She's my
coach. Yes. Yeah. She was cool. I mean, that was really cool too, because listening to you guys talk and the importance of having a coach and motivating
some real life coaching.
people.
Yeah.
Yes, right, exactly. And the joke that you made, like, you keep her on her toes because, you never know, right? But
Yeah.
and also her saying, right, like you have to find, even in executives, right, that have already kind of made it or whatever, or figuring out a different way, like helping to find what motivates them. And I really liked that too, that you never stop evolving, and nobody has it all the way figured out all the time. So
She's someone too, I feel like I've talked to therapists throughout my life. I've had other coaches, and I think she is the one person that's been able to like crack the code with me, which is like get beyond the verbal, and I do a lot of intellectualizing of things. I'm not the most, the feelings side of things I have to kind of work out a little bit. And so through working with her and the way that she works, it just was a great match to, not that it's a therapeutic situation, but it is in a way, because for me, in order for me to get to that place to kind of have some of those breakthroughs, she was the right kind of person to do that, where it's in part intellectual and you're talking about sort of practical application of coaching and how it serves me in my business, but then being able to dig in a little bit on the personal side and figure out what's like getting in your way. And interestingly, when I started working with her, it was really about weight management, because that was her background, and she's morphed into an executive coach. And I think she absolutely changed the trajectory of my life in that space and helped me really come at it from a different place.
Yeah.
So that's a lifelong
What's
issue.
her tagline? She said, like, um, job help and self-care help or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, she like puts them
Yeah.
together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Focusing on self-care
Mhm.
while you're in your job.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Sam Slevin. Um, finished his sophomore year. He's in the middle of his junior year now. But yeah, he doing fun things like playing in a summer
Yes.
league
Yeah.
and that his coaches like hooked him up with and talked all about that, and it reminded me of that movie like Summer Catch.
Yeah.
And them doing that, but
His
doing well in
position
school
change
and yep,
and
yeah,
what the impact that had on him.
right.
I think the second year of, I love to talking to him kind of about the academic side of things as well as the sports and how things shift and change, and how, as he's evolved, what's become easier, and I think too, he's very calm
Yes.
when we
Oh my
talk
gosh,
to
his voice
him.
is just so relaxing.
It's so
Yeah.
relaxing.
Yes.
But I think that the perseverance and the ability to pivot and um, be, I think, what the team needs and be willing to put in all that extra time. Like it's hard enough
Yes.
to be one position
Right.
and know all that you need to know for that. And the
Yes.
fact that he is adaptable and wants to play.
Right.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear about because he was going into the summer, so we didn't
Yes.
really hear about that and what
Right.
that's
That
like.
he was
So,
like, yeah, I think he had just started
yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yes, and just like being able to
Oh.
roll with the punches, right?
And he
like,
talked, and he talked about being around D1 athletes versus D3 and not really seeing that much of a difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. All right, now, Miss Moogie.
Yeah.
I mean,
how did it feel to be the interviewer?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it was fun because it was you two, right? Like it was, yeah, and just talking about best friends and
Yeah.
yeah, that was fun.
It was a fun day for
Watching
sure.
I always like watching you guys interact.
A lot of
with each other,
emotion
though.
that day.
I mean, there was a lot of emotion that day. No kidding.
She's a treat, and I think, big kudos to her for sharing some of that really personal stuff with respect to her parents and kind of her personal why. But I also think like it was fun going down memory lane and realizing, what it takes to sustain that kind of friendship. And I think um, a little bit of that mutual admiration society. And I think that's one of the things that uh as we have kids that are growing up and we talk a lot about this current environment where it's hard to make friends, it's harder to, I think with tech and everything else, and I know there's just harder to make those friends that like know you,
Yes.
and I think one of the things to it is finding something in someone else that you appreciate or that you admire. There's something about that too that I think we, and that's helped to sustain it over time.
Yeah.
And then being each other's, cheerleaders and whatnot.
Right.
But I
Right.
appreciate you doing that
That
for
was
us.
fun.
It's nice
That
to
was
have
fun.
that in perpetuity out
Yeah.
there in the world.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. So we talked about it on the go. And so we had Leslie on the go as our second one. And I love Leslie's story. She had such a great couple of segments there around her public speaking and also how she found her path to higher ed. And also her like vulnerability of, I think, not being so worried about what other people think. And I think, I do love that question. We get some different responses when we ask that advice.
Yeah.
Some people sort of like, they don't like to answer, which I think is so interesting.
Yes.
And then some people are just super like know like immediately what that is.
Right.
And I think she just, opens that door to say, which we all do, like we don't have to be so self-critical.
Right.
It's all,
Right.
Yeah. It's like
we're all learning.
Yeah,
still.
we're all learning.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody has to be a professional out the gate.
Yep.
Yes.
And then Pat Sargent, what a great interview. I feel like he was so insightful on being able to talk about his career at Booze and his artistry and how he's been extremely intentional, and military, and how that's all like woven together and what he's learned along the way and how he's positioned himself for retirement and carry on the art. It's just like a masterclass in that respect. And great stories, great way of giving examples of, I want all my kids to listen to it because from a military perspective, I think he talked about the iterative nature, like in the first job, you just stand all the time. And
Right.
if you do that right, then you can go and do
Yes.
this. And if you do that right, and like
Yeah.
how he would get more opportunity based on his ability to do the
Yes.
thing and do it really
Right.
well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just really, the kind of how to of it, I really
Right.
appreciated
Yeah.
that.
And just figuring it out before moving on, right? Like not
Yeah.
being in a rush to like
Yep.
want that, but yeah, like figure out the first step and then
Yeah.
the second step and then
Yeah.
I mean that interview was fascinating.
And
Very
he
thorough.
gave us some artwork as a
Oh,
result.
cool.
Remember the
Oh
he-
yeah.
the
Yes.
sketches
Yes.
he did.
Yes.
So
You're
that
right.
was
Yes.
really cool of the art that he does, which
Yes.
is create paper. It's really
Uh-huh.
cool. And then the other thing is when he talked about, which it actually sparked ideas for me around some other questions for our guests around the best constructive feedback.
Uh-huh.
And he talked a lot about like how he's navigated through that feedback and what it's meant for him.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, that was good. All right. And the book party. That was exciting. I know, right?
Yes.
All the ornaments on here that were donated books that people came to the party and bought for different education.
Libraries
venues,
and schools. And I've already been able to drop off at O'Connell. I just had that meeting and I was able to drop off at Emmanuel Christian.
Yeah.
And
so it's officially out there. But that was a good night. And everybody that came and sat down and,
and I
did
will
their own
say,
little
because
mini-
Anna's in the room, but also we got so much positive feedback on the event itself that people were like, I've been to a lot of big book parties and they're not like this. So we had a lot of fun planning it. And then I think we had your, we're going to be able to drop some of that next year.
Right.
Some of the audio for those of you that are
right, that were interviewed, right?
Yeah.
That came and sat down
Yeah,
and were interviewed.
that was fun.
Was
And then it was a lot of fun. Like it was a lot of effort to pull that together. And then it was also a big shout out to the Old Shabine because they're just always so easy to work with and so nice.
Yeah.
And
they were good.
And it was fun. And it was fun to be able to tell a story about my dad.
Yeah.
And how he really probably set the course for me on my soft skills path.
Right.
Yeah. Press the flesh.
Right. I know. I love it. I wish we could say that.
I know you can. Yeah. Not anymore. Not anymore. It's dated. Julie Parker Communications.
She was cool.
So the great thing about that is I'm their client. So it was this cool reciprocal thing of being able to talk with her in an objective way about her job, but then also being the recipient of their help and counsel. And I think just a career in broadcast journalism and what that's like, and I think for me, like the 9/11 piece of being at the anchor desk and being that close to it.
Right.
And then also talking about having to, I don't know if I think she mentioned it during the interview, but she would sometimes be the person that had to notify people of someone's passing or, and so just, everything that job is. I guess that's what struck me. It's like you just think of it as like someone being on air, but there's so much that goes, the behind the scenes on that.
Right.
And also kind of like Meriwether, where it was like she knew she wanted to be in broadcast journalism, and then it was just a matter of finding her path.
Right.
Yeah. So it was fun. It was fun to get to know her a little bit better in that space, and I think hear kind of about her path, and now her booming business of working with police academies and
different departments.
Yeah.
PR people.
Yeah, and for communications. I think it's like such a great niche. Yeah.
I agree with you. Yep. Anjanette Hayes.
AJ for short. We call her AJ.
Is she your first boss or
she was early in the career for sure. Yep. Early in the career. Yep.
And you guys shared now you would jump in front of a bus for each other, but like you starting out and making a mistake.
Yeah, it wasn't always easy.
Right. Yeah. And her, with the grace and kindness that she used, I guess, to like lead you, right?
Yeah.
Since she was your supervisor. But yeah, listening to you guys coming up together.
Yeah. And I think it's really wild when you think sometimes like we've known each other so long and now obviously are good friends, and just the career part of it and how how you don't even think about it sometimes, but that we were on this sort of similar journey and worked at similar places and had totally different experiences, but there's this like common thread. And I do think for me personally, I'm all about, hopefully people get this by now, but I'm all about transformation. It's really what I get so motivated by. And the idea that she's someone, I have a moment in time that I remember so clearly. That was my own transformation of being vulnerable. It really, I mean, God bless you, but it didn't really have a lot to do with Antoinette as much as it was me being vulnerable and saying, I own the thing, but I also am not just that thing, and kind of sticking up for myself. And I feel like then her ability to say to me, well, that's not really, I haven't even thought about it. I don't know. It was just, and it really helped me act confidently going forward in my life and
knowing
career.
it's okay to let things go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
be
other people let it go too.
Yeah, letting it go.
Yep.
Hard.
I like it.
Yeah. Ozzo, we talked about that before, so check us out on the go. There we have some of the highlights from that interview. So that was in our first drop. Yep. And then Chrissy, good old Chrissy. Chrissy's maiden name is Fink, and so I can rarely say her name without saying Chrissy Fink. That's just the way that we would always talk to one another. But now her name is Chrissy Turpin, and I love this woman so much for so many reasons. What I really appreciated about her story is her tenacity and perseverance and not giving up. When she had people in college and people post college and people in high school telling her you're never going to be able to do X, and her saying, oh yes I am.
Right.
And not just and not because it was easy, it was, she really worked and persevered to have the thing happen. And I think her pursuing her career and her passion around nutrition and being able to really see that through, have her own business, and now, be working with military. And I don't know, it's just a really cool story. Really appreciate, and she's such a kind person. She's just one of those people like you. She's from Pennsylvania, and it just is like, I don't know, you could just that goodness through and through.
Right.
And so I'm just happy for her that she's been able to find success, but also that resilience to stick with it.
I know, which is awesome. And I mean, doing it for athletes and military and their family, and finding that niche too. Like, who would think, right? That we need to we should keep all the military people healthy and whatever. But offering that service. Yeah. And her being able to do that was awesome.
And she helped me personally too with some exercise stuff and food stuff. And so, she's awesome. I would recommend anyone. I think she's Nourish to Perform. So if you, I think it's in our show notes too, so you should check her out because she's great.
Yes. Michael Sad, Professor Michael Sad. He was cool. I mean, his fun little Canadian accent too. Yeah.
We broke through.
Right. I know, right? Yeah, he was fun. He, I mean, he have like 3 jobs or something, something crazy, right? And he's like, now my day starts really early so that I can do what I need to do, so then I can focus on my students the rest of the day. And, making his way around campus every day and, helping everybody just get better all the time. But again, like, cause he reached out, right, about being interviewed. Yeah. And, just already talking about, like, from the very beginning, soft skills and, so
I think that what I loved about his conversation is he talked a lot about his own insecurities and how he was able to overcome them, but then had like physical things happen that put all of that into question, and he had to find another way to find that confidence. And in a lot of our workshops, both at like our elementary school workshops and even our adult corporate workshops, confidence comes up a lot. And depending on where you are in your career and what milestone, this idea of like, where's the confidence when I need it? Right. And I think he did a really nice job of talking about that journey and being able to find it and like really being okay with who you are, no matter what.
Right.
And then translating that to the classroom. And I love that he is a previous corporate career that he could apply in the classroom, so that, and that he had to move. I don't know. It was just, it was really interesting to hear how he's navigated that. And then I think, the piece too around, I was surprised when I asked him what he thought the biggest gap was in terms
Mhm.
of skills or being able to strengthen them. He talked about critical thinking. I thought for
Yes.
sure he was going to say public speaking, and I'm
Mhm.
usually not totally like I usually
Yeah.
have a sense, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh wow, like that. I love the it's a little bit, off brand given that he's a
Right.
professor of communication and public speaking. Not that
Right.
critical thinking isn't part of that curriculum, but how important it is and how important it is in your career to be able to demonstrate it and connect
Mhm.
dots. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Right.
And
That's
he
what
was our
happens
first,
when
yeah.
you teach to a test, right?
Yeah.
You know, I blame standardized tests
Yeah.
for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I see it too. That it's like, really?
Right.
Yeah.
Let's take it one step back. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. But I agree with you. All right, Ken Harvey. Oh my gosh, that was so exciting. That was so
for you,
exciting.
is that got to be top
It's gonna
5?
be, yes.
That's got to
for
be top
sure.
5 for you,
Mhm.
just given your
Yes.
love of the Redskins and the
Yes.
Commanders.
Yes. It
Yeah,
is
me
for
too.
sure. Yeah. He was so nice.
So nice.
I know. And that he just was like, yeah, sure, I'll come. I'll do
I
it. I
know.
mean, that was easy.
I know, so easy, so nice.
Yeah.
And
Almost dropping out of high school and then, playing in the NFL for 10 years. Like, what? And an author, and now his new fun podcast that he has. And,
yeah,
I
think I love the determination and the idea of finding a thing, and then not just, he talked a lot about like the athletic ability, but also the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate the work part of it, and
Mm-hmm.
how much goes into like him on a playground by himself. Like,
right.
yes, like wasn't the best equipment, wasn't that,
Right.
Right. And I think the transition from being in that limelight and how that adjustments impacted him,
Mm-hmm.
and how he's been able to maneuver through that, and I think always be creating and pushing forward, and all of it. He's like so many ideas about how he
right.
I just I really appreciated the entrepreneur in him.
Right. But also I like too that he was like, I mean, he brought up a village a lot, right? Like you can do things by yourself, but you can only take yourself so far until you have to reach out for help. Like in the gym, on the playground, working out, like food, whatever. Just, but
not being too proud.
right. Because eventually you will max out and you need to rely on someone else's expertise to come in and help you. And so,
Yeah. And he was nice to take a picture with our son Josh, and not ours.
right.
My son Josh. But
I'll
he was
take
just
him. He looks like he could be mine.
he does.
Curly hair.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think too, just as a shout out to the fact that how we met, and then he was so nice to be and at first I thought it was a joke, like when he gave me his number and then it didn't work. I was like, and then he was like, no, here's the real number. It was just really sweet.
Right.
So thank you, Ken, for that. You didn't have to do that.
That was awesome.
And then lastly, what I think is my second cousin once removed, but I don't know. We both joked in the beginning of our conversation what we really are, but at least second cousins, Jim McLeod, who he, gosh, what a great interview from the perspective of secret sauce and insight on success. His background in mortgage banking and how he found it. And then also, we talked a lot about servant leadership and how important that's been to him throughout his career, and how now I feel like he was another one that throughout the conversation, there were all these like sound bites that I wrote down. One of them was like, now he's like, I do things now that I want to, not because I have to. And I think like,
that's awesome.
the intention that was required to get to that point, that he put in his career. And I think we talked a lot about too the importance of the idea of performance at work, and how people need vision and mission, but they also need rules on how to get there. And that really stuck out to me. It's like you hear a lot about strategy, mission, vision, values, but then it's like, okay, well, what are the rules? And when you know the rules,
right,
then you're always on the same page. And I just thought he did a really nice job of explaining that. And then it was great to just have some of that, like family, and we didn't talk too much about family history, but he has he was at my parents' wedding
Oh, cool.
when he was 7 and told a hilarious story, not on the podcast, but recently told us a story about how he was on his side of the family, his grandparents, there was a teetotaler and someone that shouldn't have been drinking, and they ended up in the bathroom.
Oh no.
And he was being asked to carry drinks to her in the bathroom at my parents' wedding. That's like his, But it's just cool to have people in your life and have someone. He's
Right.
really good at like carrying the stories and carrying them forward.
That's awesome.
He told another really fascinating story about my grandmother who my grandmother was married 3 times, and the second marriage was to the vice president of foreign affairs at Ford Motor Company.
Oh, wow.
And back in that time, when they were married, the automotive industry was almost celebrity like, right? There was just the circles they traveled in because it was such a big deal. And there was a period of time when her second husband Art passed, and she was the primary shareholder
Wow.
in Ford Motor Company.
Oh my gosh.
Just because of owning shares, and like it was like just a 24-hour period, but for 24 hours my grandmother had the like voting and owners rights of shares. So that's pretty cool story too. So he has,
awesome.
he has the stories that's kind of fun to be able to like, I definitely want to stay in touch and hear more stories so that I can,
That's awesome.
carry them on
That's
forward.
so cool.
Yeah. So that
That's it.
wraps us up for
Yes.
2023.
I know. Can't believe it.
I can't believe it. Thank you for
What a great
being
year.
a solid citizen and staying with it for so long.
Thanks for letting me.
And Hannah, thank
Good
you, Missy. She's saluting in the background. She's
Right.
like, oh, and Byron too. We should do a shout out to
yeah.
Byron because
Yes.
he's been helping us, which I'm sure Hannah would say Yahoo, because he's helping us a lot
Right.
with scheduling, and
everybody,
he's super
setting everybody up.
organized and
Yeah.
keeping us straight with that. So
Right.
thank you, B.
Yeah.
So thank you to our relatable community who we love so much,
Mhm.
and for always chiming in. We've seen a lot of growth in our audience this year. We're so happy about that, and more to come in terms of more on the go episodes and new guests that we already have scheduled. We've got some really cool guests coming up in the new year that we already scheduled. So
it'll be good.
Looking forward to seeing y'all out there, and stay connected.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.